Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be talking about NATO and the Warsaw Pact today. And first I wanted to review on the last lecture that we did on the Berlin blockade and the Berlin airlift. And so I made this map right here to demonstrate the situation, why there's so much tension. So here we have Eastern Germany that's occupied by the Soviet Union, and here we have Western Germany occupied by the Americans and the British, and this dot right here is Berlin, and it had a lot of tension because half of Berlin was capitalist and the other half was communist, and that made the Soviets really mad and the Soviets really wanted it because they just wanted to occupy the whole thing, because it was kind of embarrassing that half was on their other side of their ideology and then half was the opposition. And so this led to the Berlin blockade and the Berlin airlift, which we talked about a few days ago. And to review that, it was when Stalin blocked the Western Allies' access to railroads and canals and roads, and this was so the Soviet Union could have practically all control over Berlin. However, then this led to the Berlin airlift because the Americans and British, they sent planes and they sent resources over. This is Berlin, basically. They sent them over and they got them supplies. And this was pretty embarrassing for Stalin because the airlift worked, and so he was undermining their power. And this heightened tensions in the Cold War, and it greatly increased concerns about the vulnerability of Western Europe to an attack by the Soviet Union. This caused intimidation even though the Berlin airlift worked. So this is the precursor. First, the Brussels Treaty happened, and the Berlin blockade was in 1948. So the Brussels Treaty happened in 1948 before Stalin stops the blockade in 1949. So the Brussels Treaty was when Britain, France, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg agreed mutual assistance if an attack happened. But it was actually found out to be too weak to stop the Soviet Union from aggression. So this is when the NATO comes in, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And this was created in 1949. And so if you want to know the difference between the Brussels Treaty and NATO, is that the Brussels Treaty was primarily against Germany, like a mutual defense pact against Germany. But NATO referred mostly to like Europe being divided between capitalists and communists. So that's how it differs. So NATO was created in 1949 between the United States and Western European countries. And it said that if one country was attacked, then everybody else would help out and aid in against the Soviet Union. So this was an alliance, basically. And it was it was the Truman Doctrine in action. And the Truman Doctrine, remember we said it was to contain communism. Well, the NATO Act was to contain communism, basically. So it's the Truman Doctrine in action. And so this was caused after the Berlin blockade. and the Berlin airlift because they were intimidated by the Soviet Union, even though the Berlin airlift worked. Okay, and then this is the turning point in this whole situation is when in 1955 Western Germany joins NATO. And this is a big turning point because the Soviet Union was scared for another invasion against Germany. And so if Western Germany joins an alliance against communism, then that could cause another attack against them. So they didn't want that. So this is what they did in response to that. The Soviet Union made the Warsaw Pact, which is basically NATO, but for the Soviet Union communists instead of the British and American, all those other Western allies, capitalism. And so the Warsaw Pact is kind of the same thing. So if the Western allies got attacked, then the other countries in the alliance would help them. And so this results in basically a very big division in the world. This is the division right here. So we have two ideologies. We have capitalism right here and communism right here. And they are being divided. And they're in opposition. And so we have two superpowers, and this results in a big escalation of tension for a while in the Cold War. And so then this NATO and Warsaw Pact, the tension rising, ultimately causes three major crises in the Cold War, which is the Hungarian uprising, Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Berlin War. And those are the results of the NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Is just clashing ideologies coming against each other and creating an advance in the Cold War and more crises. Thank you.